Have you walked by your visual boards and they're not really filled out and you really don't know if that team is winning or not? Or maybe you're on the team and you can't tell. The equipment's running, but that's why we do visual management boards in manufacturing. And then we get the executive team saying, hey, we told them how to fill them out. And then the team's still a little bit confused looking for more clarity. Both can be right at the same time. But at the end of the day, if those boards aren't filled out so we understand where we are currently with safety, quality, productivity, then we're probably not going to be winning. And that's what we want to do, is be winning. So we want problems to be escalated. We want the loop to be closed on problems. And most manufacturing leaders treat this as an accountability concern, but it isn't. It's actually a clarity problem in disguise. And today I'll give you 3 questions that you can stop telling people what to do and then just get those results. So at this large food manufacturing company, we're working with some of these leaders and great visual management boards. Executive team, very clear, good standards. We talk on lean, best practice. And then you've got the group that's responsible for creating the boards and updating the boards. And it's a real slow process to get those boards up and going. And then that causes stress and frustration because it's like, hey, like the team needs to know. We know that when the team members have problems, we put them on the board. If we can get them resolved, we get this going, and we got to know what good looks like. But there's that disconnect from the top to the shop of what does good look like. And when I reviewed with some of the leaders there was some disconnect. And it wasn't like, geez, the executive team did a great job, or, the other side from actually implementing the boards, well, they should have just known better. The answer is connection in that conversation. It's the deeper conversation and asking the question, instead of why aren't the boards updated, you can ask, what does good look like to you on these boards? Because when we have to articulate it ourselves and explain, hey, this is what the team is asking for. Here's how we solve problems. Here's the standard of the boards. And it's just a conversation. There's that balance of creating that vision, that guideline of, hey, here's what good looks like overall on visual management, right? A big part of manufacturing is visual management, whether it's electronic or whether it's manual. And I think sometimes a combination of the both seems to be the right situation. But what I wanted to share was, and this is what really got me thinking about this, is that Shane Zutz at DigiKey, he writes a newsletter. It's called High Impact Leadership. Shane was a guest on episode 127. That was back in October 2024. And it was around stories for leading with curiosity and empathy. And last week, he wrote an article on accountability and how we get the diagnosis wrong, which really ties into the book that's coming out May 11th, 2027, Manufacturing Greatness. So that's going to be coming out soon. So it all aligns, right? And Shane's line is, when accountability isn't showing up, stop asking who needs to be more accountable. Start asking, where are we not clear? Where are we not clear? So easy, right? Just start with that. And if they don't know, then you can start talking more about those expectations. Or if you're on the other side, it's just going back and forth, that dialogue, 2 people talking together to solve a problem. And that gap, it doesn't live with just executives and supervisors. It's disconnection even within the group. So it's just a good way to challenge ourselves before we jump to, hey, who's accountable? Because as Shane and I talk, there's tons of articles out there on accountability, or maybe just people trying to figure this out. But if we take that step back, in the book, we talk about the 3 gaps: the showing up gap, the expectation gap, and the accountability gap. And so today was just good examples of, this is real life. These are the same problems, different plans, right? And we all seem to struggle with that. And one of the leaders that I was working with some of these problems, I said, what does good look like on your board? And you can just start with that. Like, to you, what does a good board look like? Instead of saying, hey, all the boards got to be like this. We want some flexibility for the team, but we also need a vision of, like, what are we tracking? We have lead measures, we have lag measures. Lead more of actions we're in control of, like, hey, have we checked the tips every so many cycles on the welder, versus, hey, how many faults did we have, kind of the outcome. So we go back and forth between those 2. But that is the one line. The clarity isn't restriction. It's the rail that lets creativity actually move somewhere. So the 3 questions you can ask, and we've kind of dropped some of these in here, but what does good look like here? Could be a visual management board, could be anything. What does good look like here? Okay, so if now we're aligned, like, what would get away from just changing that board to what the team needs, or just keeping it updated? Whatever we're going to do, we got to commit to that. That's the integrity part. That's the accountability part. Once we're clear on those expectations, well, then then it's not a big deal, right? Now it's just a conversation of, hey, what's getting in the way? And then the third question, what can you do to move it forward? Okay. So, but by asking those questions, it isn't just enough, right? It's got to be that back and forth dialogue. It's the active inquiry of asking more questions. And if we want to change someone's behavior, the only way that's going to happen is to change our thinking. And rarely does people's thinking change by what we say, right? It's what that person is thinking, what they're saying. How can we start being more curious, coming with that curiosity of like, okay, so why wouldn't that project be completed properly? This is a good person. We hired this person, right? So this is important. So what I would ask of you this week, or maybe just today, if you're listening to this on your way in, or maybe you're on YouTube right now and you can be connected and see what we're going to do together here. But when you go on that shop floor and you see something's not right, come at it with that curiosity. Pull on some of those questions. Hey, what does good look like here? Have that conversation. Where are you not clear? And they may not be able to answer that one, right? Because if you don't know, how do you know? So it's asking more questions about how people are thinking. What do they need? That's really, really our job as leaders, right? To kind of knock down those roadblocks. So think about that today. Take that information, build on that. And if we continue learning, we're going to be curious. That will transcend into the shop floor. That'll transcend into your operation. And like that chocolate fountain just going through the whole manufacturing plant, that's going to create a learning organization. So we go from accountability, telling people what to do, and then not just doing it. And then we got to jump back to what's clarity. So hope you enjoyed the show. We'll keep these weekly episodes going. I share more information through our newsletter. I've got those 10 questions that you can download. You can ask more questions around clarity. If you go to manufacturinggreatness.com/subscribe, you can download those. You'll get on the newsletter. You got updates on the podcast. And thanks for tuning in. Let's stay curious.